page 24. We start with Mishnah, page 23b. The subject, first and foremost, we're going to discuss something that we do 3 times in a row, makes it change the status. For example, if we're now in the season that change, so let's say if someone needs to say a Ne'amida in Shmoneh Esrei from Mashiv Ruach Moed Geshem to change it to a different ways, there is a famous Mayor Rottenberg that suggested to say 90 times. But here we are, the Mishnah, Ezeu Tam Ve'ezeu Muad. Here the Mishnah is speaking about different category of ox. There is an ox that we call Tam, which means a regular one that is reached up to 3 times. And the Mukhi Yosef said, we are dealing here with changing the status to be back from a flawless, meaning there's someone that's already 3 times damaged to someone that is now back to a regular, well-mannered ox, but we can have derivative for other manners. So first to see the Mishnah, Zeu Tam Ve'ezeu Muad. He said, Muad kol she'idu bo 3 yamim. Here we speak about goring 3 times, not in the consecutive time, but in a separate time, versus Tam, mishiachzor bo 3 yamim, divrei Rabbi Yehuda, which means according to Rabbi Yehuda, if there's 3 days in a separate time, it's a void from this type of ox no longer goring, then it turns back to the Talmud, meaning back to the ox that you are not put to damage more than a half, חצי נזק. רמי אומר מועד כל שהידו בו 3 פעמים ותם כל שיעור תינוקות משמשים בו ולא נוגח. Rami disputed and he said, when it's come to unfloored, meaning the muad, the 3 times, if it's even 1 day, there are those who testify and say that it happened that he damaged by using it is goring or others, and tam is if the little children play with him and he's instead of being angry, he is well behaved. So for sure there is a different view between the Tosefta that said that the children play with his keren, with his whoring, versus Rambam in the Perush Mishnah that said that they play with his tail. But the key is he is not either by the simple way is not damage other oxes. That's the simple way that Talmidei Rabbeinu Peretz. There are others like Tosfot that say that it's not damage other people, not necessarily other oxes. So here we see in the conclusion there is 2 views in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, and then we go here to the Gemarrah that's going to explain each view separately.
Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir disputed when it's come to forewarning if you need to have 3 goring in 3 different days or it's enough in 1 day. My ta'amad Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason that Rabbi Yehuda hold that you need to have a status of forewarning, a mu'ad, if it happens in the 3 separate days? Amar Abaye said when you go in the pasuk, the Torah tells us in the Shmot, in Exodus 21, Kishon agachu mitmol shilshom velo yishmerenu be'alav. The text said, or if it is known that the ox was a goring ox for yesterday and the day before yesterday, and its owner has not secured it. So what does that mean? They use the term yesterday and day before yesterday. Tmol, yesterday, chad, it's 1 day. Mitmol, they add the letter mem. Trei, it's 2 days. Shilshom, tlata, is 3 days. Velo yishmerenu be'alav, they said, but the text and its owner is not guarded. Now we have atan len gicha revi'it. So Rashi explained that this is the sign. If after the ox gored 3 times and the owner did not watch over him properly, which called pag-aaral, he needs to pay full damage. But at the 3rd one, the way Rashi explains, it's only half because it's still considering tam. Rava Amar, tmol mitmol, says yesterday from yesterday is 1 day. Chad, shilshom trei, which is the idea of the before yesterday, that's bringing 2 days. Velo yishmerenu ha'idna chayav. So it's a continued, owner does not guard it today, on the third day, he is liable to pay full damage. So you see here Rashi and Tosfot. It's in general a discussion among the rabbis in several similar cases. Isha katlanit, woman that married a man and he passed away. Then she married another man and he passed away. Now the question is, good morning. Do you call that Isha katlanit, which means, do you call that a woman that's already, in a way, have a symbol of kind of, the best way I may say it, bad luck, or you call it from the fourth time? The same school of thought, if someone, God forbid, have children and the first one passed away right mechamat milah, right after the brit, and you have the second child passed away because of the brit. Now how you treated the third child, right? Or do you go by the fourth or you go by the third, right? Because if you compare, you juxtapose, it's a kind of a serious business, because if you go by the Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah, so you go how many times? You go by the fourth time. If you go by if you go by you go by the Abaye, it's only up to third time. If you go by the Rava, you go by the fourth time. So now the Tosfot bring Shitat Rabbi Yezriel. Anyway, let's continue. So they said the Rabbi Meir reasoning. He said, the Rabbi Meir Maitame. What's the reason that you made the shore, the ox, mu'ad, for one, even the same day? The Tanya, we learn in the Braita, Amar Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir said, 24, Richakni gichotav chayav. So if you have a ox that have this type of going interval, so the owner is liable. Ki ravni gichotav lo kol sheken. So if the other way, when it's concentrated, it's goring, and it's all happened in one day, so it's not certain that he's liable to pay nezik shalem, a full damage, and become a forewarning. Amrulei zava tochiach. So now they go to a different avenue, which is the law of zava. Zava, in general, is the woman that have menstruation. And the Torah said that it's a two different category. One is called Zavak Dola and one is called Zavak Tana. In very short, women that have the law of Nida, it's a 7 days period, and from 7 days period, we basically said that she count those following 7 days, meaning 7 plus 5, and then she can dark herself. But you have 11 days after the 7 days that it's called the days between Nida and Nida. So that's called lo et nidata. And those days, it's a period of time that if she see a blood on the 3 consecutive days, so it's called zavak dola. If it's just periodically without a subsequent order, so it's called zavak tana. So what happened is in the law of Zava, tochiach she'im rechaka re'iyotea, that if it was a distance between her 3 discharges, so they said, Teora, she's no longer carry the impurity of Zava Gdola. Amar lahem, arei hu omer, we learn about Zav, which is a man that have a discharge. Vezot tiyeh tum'ato bezovo, that this will be the third time, the first time, so it's he needs to go by the process, then the second time the 7 days period, and he needs to use the spring water, and the third time he need to bring an offering, korban. But they said, וזאת תהיה טומאתו בזובות, הלאה כתוב את הזב בריות ואת הזבה בימין. So when it's come to zav, so the text want the zav to depend upon the discharges. When it's come to Zava, you go by the days. So, again, there's a discussion among the poskim, if it's ben hashmashot, how you treat it, you compare it to shor muad or not. But anyway, זו שיטה מקובצת, רבנו פרס, תוספות. וממאי דהי וזאת למהות הזבה מראיות, אלא למהות הזב מימים. So, if you come to this, the conclusion, so how, in which way you know that the expression vezot and this, it excludes zava from discharge alone. May you say that it's to come to zav from assuming that the status 3 days discharges on separate days. So they said, Amarkra, we have the pasuk over there, Lamed Gimel. They use the term Ve'azav et zovo lazachar ve'lan nekeva. Said the pasuk said, and one who is has the discharge, whether he's a man or woman. So you see here, man nekeva, we learn in the verbal juxtaposition. Man nekeva, the same way as the female became zava gdola biyamim, which is by having a different days, even without riyot. Zachar b'yamim. So the same applies to a male, can be caused by citing on multiple days. So the Gemara said, Velakish, and we should compare nekeva lezachar, female to male, which is ma zachar riyot of nekeva b'riyot, the same way as even one day they see it in a male, it become zav, the same applied to a female. So since you have a hekesh, you have a verbal juxtaposition between male and female, the same we should go by the days, which means you make the same rules for male for female the same as male. So it said, Hami en rachmana vezot. The Torah clearly excluded this possibility by making the statement and this. So it means you cannot go bariyot when it's come to ritual purity in a female. So the Gemara said, Umara ita. So what compelling the reason you see to have this type of pasuk this way rather than the other way around? So they said, mistabra, you can think more logical, more reasonable, ka'ei beriyot mema'et riyot. That the pasuk deals with these charges, it's excluded this charge. Ka'ei, so you can derive by the reasonable to say beriyot mema'et yamim, that when you deal with these charges, it's excluded days rather than the charges, and they're certainly not. So there is a Maharam Rothenburg. Basically, the idea is it's all too easy to make mistake when switching over to say Mashiva Ruach and V'ten tal u'matar livracha, doing the instead of the summer formula, because it's fairly common for a person to realize only after finishing the Shmones or the Amida that he was supposed to switch and to be unsure if he did. So a month after the change, one can assume that he said the correct nusach in both places, since he's already accustomed. But what about if a month go by? So the famous Maharam Rothenburg, so he originated the well-known way around for this problem. He ruled that one should say what should he said 90 times in a row. So for example, if one person repeat the phrase Mechaye metim ata rav leoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hageshem. So you repeat it a full 90 times. So in that way, he is considered to have said this nusach for quote unquote a month. But the question is, how can we know that repeating something in a quick succession is ineffective as saying it over the course of 30 days? So he proves it from the what we said now in our daf, because what we said if an ox goes 3 times on 3 consecutive days, right? So it's considered mu'ad, meaning the forewarned, prone to gore, and the owner pays for the full damage that the ox causes. So here I'm reading the translation from the Gemarrah. In Rav Meir's opinion, if the ox goes 3 times on one day, it is also considered to be an ox that is prone to gore. He reasons that if an ox that gored on 3 consecutive days becomes a going ox. One who goes 3 times in a day, in one day, surely attains this status. So we see that doing something many times over a shorter interval is as significant as doing it over a more protracted period. So you have the Tur and Shulchan Aruch. The Tur Shulchan Aruch, first of all, you have the Khatam Sofer. Khatam Sofer said that it's not enough 90 times. He said that you have a whole month, that you have Musafin, etc. But Noida Biyuda asked, you see here a proof, that you have difference between 3 days and 1 day and more. So you have the famous Tur, the Tur in Shulchan Aruch. This is the Or Chaim 114, Magen Avraham also. So he said, he rules that that is all very well, but we do not hold like Rav Meir's opinion, because the halacha follow Rabbi Yehuda that an ox that goes 3 times in 1 day is not considering a muad. So he explained, the Magen Avraham explained that we must explain that although Rav Meir's opinion is refuted regarding an ox that goes 3 times in the same day, perhaps the animal had a bad day. His reasoning is sound in general and does not apply elsewhere. So that's why repeating the phrase 90 times straight is the same as saying a nusach 90 times in 30 days. But the Noda Biyuda said that we can differentiate between hergel, that's something that a person gets used to something, versus Gzerat HaKatuv. But anyway, let's see it in...
Rabbi Yehuda is basically just saying it was a single rampage that the ox went on. And,
correct.
you know, if it happened to gore 3 people during that time, it was 1 act, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't make an inference.
Right.
That it
Yeah, so
would continue
essentially
to do
1
it.
act,
Right.
It
right,
would
yeah.
continue to do it.
Tanu Rabbanan, לזהו מועד, כל שהעידו בו 3 ימים. It became forewarned when it's approved of 3 different days. וטעם שיהיו תינוקות משמשים בו ואינו נוגח דברי רבי יוסי. There's a time that he was an angry ox, and now the kids playing with him, and as we explained, either by the Tosefta, they're playing with his horn, or by the Rambam, that playing with his tail, and he's still nice and is not behave, going other animals or going people. So you know that he is back to the old business, became tam, became unharmed animal. Right? Rabbi Shimon אומר, מועד כל שהעידו בו 3 פעמים, ולא אמרו 3 ימים, אלא חזרה בלבד. Right? So it's 3 times in 1 day, or in order for him to regress, to go back to be tam, needs to be avoided from behave like that for 3 days in a row. So now we see a פסק הלכה. אמר רב נחמן רב עדה בר רבא, הלכה כרבי יהודה במועד, שרבי יוסי מודה לו, והלכה כרבי תם, שרבי יוסי מודה לו. So it's only if it happens 3 days, 6 separate days, that it became forewarning, muad, otherwise not, because Rabbi Yossi agreed. And the Rabbi Meir, when it's come to Talmud, to become a ox that is not in the status of forewarning, it's if the kid's playing and is with him and he's not goring, so you know, because Rabbi Yossi agreed, we turn to that status. So the Gemara challenged that and said, אמר לרבא לרב נחמן, ולאם אמר הלכה כרב מאיר במועד שרבי שמעון מודה לו. So he said that you may said להלכה follow רב מאיר because רבי שמעון agrees with him, והלכה כרבי יהודה בתם שרבי שמעון מודה לו. So why you rules according to רבי יוסי and not according to רבי שמעון? אמר לאנה כרבי יוסי הסביר לי רבי יוסי ונימוקו עמו. It's a well-known statement that Rabbi Yossi has his own reasons. So there are several points here. Number 1 is a well-known statement, both in Gemarrah Brachot in 37, Eruvin 51, Gittin 67, that Rabbi Yossi have nimko, he have his own straight knowledge in halacha that they said it's come from the Greek knowledge, that it's his Torah. Rabbeinu Chanel said the body of traditions received from the previous generation. Some said it's all reasoning, but anyway, you go by that way. So the Trumat Hadeshen asked about Kala Nida, a woman that just got married, and basically by halacha she cannot asura l'tiachad im ba'ala because it's not pad besalo. But the question is, he asked, If someone got married and then somehow after the first several days they separated. So the question is, do you treat it as a pat besalo or not, based on this Gemarrah? So here we have a proof. If you have an animal that did not damage for several days, what you said that it changed for what? From forewarning, from muad to tam. But the Taz said absolutely not, because it's ein davar haomed bifnei erva. There's nothing we stand before the Yetzer Hara. So therefore, you bring it's a well-known story about Yochanan Kohen Gadol. He was a high priest for 70 years, and then he turns to be tzeduki. So it's a famous story about Rav Karel. It's the Chazon Ish. Someone told him, this person is such a righteous, pious man that he doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. So the Chazon Ish look and says, oh, so he's Baal Mum. So you have some blemish, because there's no such a thing, a human that doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. So you always have the concern. Ibayalu, they ask a question.
Rabbi Yossi also doesn't he have the reputation as sort of being the most logical and writes his.
That's what we just said. It's Gemarrah in Eruv in 51 said. Anyway,
and Gittin, right? Also
Gittin also.
Yeah.
Gittin 67. Ibayalu, שלושה ימים דקטני ליהודי תורה וליהודי גברא. So the Meiri explains there is a 2 point in this question. When it's come ליהודי Torah to make an ox muad, if you have 3 negichot, 3 times that is goring on 3 days, so this ox is already destructive. It's a gorer. So you have the nature, the owner is responsible immediately. Or the other option is leyaudei gavra, to make the person a muad. So say maybe the ox destructive nature as a gorer is established by very, very first incident. So by the Torah, however, it's more lenient with the owner. They not make him liable to full damage until he warns the owner of the gore 3 times. You see it nowadays, people who owns those animals, they warning them for certain behaviors. So sometimes the person, sometimes the animal. The mind of Kamina, what's the difference between the 2 options? You have 3 different a set of witnesses that come in one day, and they said that this ox caused damage 3 different times. So you have the Beddin, the group of 2 people came, and then they said that he did damage. The second group came and said he did damage. The third group came, but each of them came in different times. So here, I amart leyaudei Torah. If you tell me if you say that 3 days you need to make an ox forewarning, then it becomes a forewarning. In this case, so if you say that 3 days you need in order to make a person muad, so it does not become muad in this type of case. If you tell me that these 3 days, in order to make a person muad, which means that he is the one who's warned, lo miad meimar amar hashtahu dekamasahadu bimai. So he can claim it is only now that they are testifying against me. So what's the din? Tashma. So we bring a Braita. Braita said, "En ashon asamuad shalibu b'fnei balim b'fnei bedin." In order for the ox to become a forewarning, you need to have these 2 conditions: the owner and the beddin. If it's one of them fulfilled, which is they have the testimony in the court, but not the presence of the owner. If you have the owner but not the court, and no samuad, so it's not become a forewarning. So you have to have these 2 conditions. So even he said it earlier. When it's come to a monetary disputation is one thing, but when it's come the ox, the Mukhe Yosef explained, you need to have these 2 conditions. You need to have the owner present, and you need to have the court session. Heidu shnayim barishona. You have the 2 witnesses come first time that he gored. Okay, ushnayim bashniya, and the second group came second time. Ushniyim bashlishit. So you have 3 different set of testimonies. So if one of them somehow fall apart, it's all the building was collapse. All these testimony collapse. ואין עדות אחת להזמה. But they are one testimony as regards the להזמה penalty, which means that they basically said, for example, you are with us at that time. How come you give a testimony? We saw you in a different location at that time, right? נמצאת כת ראשונה זוממת, so it means that the first set found to be זוממים, הרי כאן שתי עדויות, והוא פטור, so therefore he's exempt from paying a full payment because you don't have a testimony for only the two, והם פטורים, and the first one that he turns to be liars. Why? Because the other two came and said, we saw you in different location at that time. Because it's not ועשיתם לו כאשר הזמן לעשות לאחיו. The Torah said that you should pay him the same manner as which he planning to do to his brother, to the other fellow. That apply only if the other, the whole three set cause that damage. But if one of them is out, so you don't have a full damage, so therefore you cannot impose on them the payment. נמצאת כת שנייה זוממת, הרי כאן עדות אחת והוא פטור, ואין פטורים. נמצאת כת שלישית זוממת, כולם חייבים, ועל זה נאמר ועשיתם לו כאשר לזמם. So it means that they all, this three set of witnesses are liable because it's a conspiracy to make their own liable in full damage. And that's the Torah said, and you shall do unto him as he planned to do to the others. So you see here, in order to have this type of penalty, you need to have this measurement of full three sets that did it. If you go by the first thought to make an ox mu'ad, so it's fine. The Braita hold that three groups of them are liable for conspiring and make an ox mu'ad. So the Ksot HaChoshen disputed with Netivot HaMishpat, the two giant rabbis. The Ksot HaChoshen asked a question: if you have witnesses that come Edim Yom Rishon, they come in one day, and said, for example, the yain of Reuven is yain nesech. They said that this wine. So the second one came and said, the second witness says, why you guys are lying? You are with us that day. So can you impose these guys that came and testified that this barrel of wine that worth, for example, $100,000, this storage of wine, and they said it's yain nesech. So you said that since the second group came and said that the first one is lying, and it's proved that they're lying, we can impose, according to Trumat Adeshen, on them to pay back this guy $100K that they planning to destroy his business, right? Why? He said the same as you treated Shor Muad, the same as you have an ox that go 3 times, so you have to pay Nezek Shalem min Aliyah. So the Netivot HaMishpat disputed him, and he says, specifically something that you do in the rabbinic court and in the presence of the owner, we said that there's 2 conditions. One is bifnei ba'alim and one is bifnei bedin. So then it's applied vasitim lo kasher zamam. You can do to him as planning he said do to others. But when it's come to yain nesech, you don't need to go to bedin. You can put a pag-aaral in the streets and tell these guys carries yain nesech. So you don't have the din kasher zamam lasot. So therefore, Netivot disputed the Ktsot. The Ktsot said, you can impose that payment. Netivot HaMishpat said, no, you cannot compare the two. 24b, if you tell me that the witnesses came to what? To make the person, muad, to forewarn the man, to caution him to safeguard the animal from causing harm. אלה אמרת ליהודי רבי לאמור, אנח כמה אנן מאביה אבן ידעינן דבתר 3 ימים עד תוהנה יום יד עלי. We know that then these witnesses come and the last one and make it a mu'ad, which means you cannot assume that the first witnesses intend to reach that point, that make it mu'ad and make it full nezik. So, because you see the Braita that impose on the first one to pay but the way they're planning, so it means that the first 3 days it's in order to keep the ox as nagchan and not to make the person mutre. אמר רבא שאמרית לשמעת כמד רב כהנא, ואמר להטו תורה מניחא, ולאמרו אנח בתרא, the last witnesses can say, אנא מנא ידינא דכל קאי בדינה לסודי בתורה כעתו. So from where do we know that all those standing in court came to testify about the ox? We came to make the person liable to pay a half cost of the damage of animal, so already caused, but we're not responsible for the attempt to make him pay the full cost of the damage for the third incident. So the Gemarrah said, Ramze Remuzei. So Rashi here said, כלומר ליהוד התורה ניחא ביום אחד, כגון דקמרם זה רמוזה כעדת ראשונה, לכעדת שלישית. So the same as the Tosfot said, the Rach and the Rambam, that's the Kuli Alma. Both, man damar Torah, man damar Gavra. But I explained in my controversies, so bring the Tosfot Rabbenu Peretz and Tosfot, that the way I see it is a disputation between the view of the Rambam and the Ravid, how you treated, and the Tosfot said how you treated here. What does that mean? The Gemara is a Remuzei. So I think that Rashi used the word Klomar. He wants to change the Girsa, the Ela the Kameram is a Remuzei, and he wants to emphasize that the Teirutz is only, the explanation is only the Man Damar Le'ud Torah, and not the way Tosfot explained. Anyway, another explanation, Rav Ashi Amar, כשבאו רצופים. So Rav Ashi said, when they all came in succession, one following the other. So therefore it's clear that the later witnesses are aware of the former. Third explanation, Rabbi Amar, במכירים בעל השור ואין מכירים את השור. Here you talk about the case that the witnesses know, they honor, recognize the ox honor, but they don't recognize the ox itself. So you assume that they want to make the shor muad and have the owner pay full damage. And they cannot say, no, we tend only to a half a nezek, because that not applied to the body of the animals. So how they make it muad? The Amri Torah nagchana itlach lebevakrach, ibaletu lekule bekra. So if you have in the morning an ox that gored, so you have to watch him all morning from doing damage. Now you see something, you see it coming. You go in a park and you see one dog start barking on the other dog, and you see a fight between them, right? You see it in this country a lot, right? The student asked a question before the sages. If one who incites another dog against another, which means the third person, and he's injured, which means Reuven basically have his dog run the dog of Shimon, and the dog of Shimon hits Levi. So Mao, what do you do with the one who injured? So Meshaseh vadai patu, because it's grammar. The one is for sure it's free, but mi amrina ba'al hakelev mai, the owner of the dog, do you say that it's his property, so he's obligated to pay or not? Mi amrin lematze amar le anan ma avdin alei. I didn't do it. I'm not responsible for the damage. Odil ma amrin le kevan dedach bekalbach, demishatzes le umishatzei. So you know your dog, if you anger him, he's going to behave wildly, right? Lo yeba elach shlesh lu'eh. You do not delay it, and therefore you're responsible. Amar v'zera tashma. V'tam, we have ox. שיהו תינוקות משמשים בו ואינו נוגח. הנוגח חייב. But if after these kids play with his tail and he went out and he gore another ox, so the owner needs to pay for that. So it means, what do you prove from this Mishnah? That according to that view, if an animal of Reuven damaged Shimon, so Reuven is responsible for the damage, right? Why? Because the ox is already in a state of ready to damage, right? So it's in a way you said that because the children incite the animal to do so, so therefore nothing can be conclusively demonstrated from the Braita. It's in a way it's not the dog fault, but anyway, Tashma שיסה בו את הכלב, שיסה בו נחש. So here you see a Gemara in Sanhedrin 76b. If one incited a dog against another person, or incited a snake against another person, so that's called grama, indirect. So we say that he is exempt. My love, פטור משסה וחייב בעל כלב. You said that the one who incited the dog against him is exempt, but the owner of the dog is liable. So the owner of the dog or the owner of the snake, you say that he's mamono. There's the Rashba said is a singular, should have said in plural. But anyway, lo, it's not eima patur af meshaseh. The insider is also exempt. Why? Because the Mishnah means that not only the dog's master is not liable, but even the insider is not liable. So, אמר רבא, אם תמצא לומר משסה כלבו של חברו בחברו חייב, שיסר הוא בעצמו, if the victim incited against himself, which you see sometimes people play with animals, right? Play with dangerous animals. I saw when I was in Johannesburg, I went to that crazy place, I forgot the name. It's a range in North Johannesburg. And I saw people playing with lions, with cheetah, with like right, but and it's so dangerous. I mean, in a second they can bite them, they can. המשסה כלבו של חברו וחברו חייב, שיסהו בעצמו פטור, מה איתם? כל המשנה הוא באחר ושינה בו, פטור. Because whenever one act irregularly, and someone else come along and act irregularly against him, the second party is not liable to pay. אמר לרבא לרבא, איתמר משמי דרש לקיש כבטח. ואומר יש לקיש שתי פרוש ברשות הרבים אחת, רבוצה ואחת מהלכת. If you have two cows in the public domain, one squatting and one walking, ובעתה מהלכת ברבוצה פטורה. Then, if the walker kicked the squatter, she, which means the her owner, is not liable. רבוצה במהלכת חייבת. But if the squatter kicked the walker, the her owner is liable. אמר לי, ענה בהאי חיוב ומחייבינה, דאמרינן לי. So he said, it's not according to my opinion, as I have held that the owner is walking cow liable in that case, because the way I see it, the owner will say to him, on behalf of the prone cow, כי אית רשות לסגוי עליי, so he said, because if you have the right to tread on me in the public domain, לבאות בי לית לך רשותה, you not have the right to kick me, and therefore Rabbas and Reish Lakish opinions are not exactly the same.